My name is Louise, and I never imagined that my life could shatter in a single week. At 34 years old, I stood at my husband's funeral numb from grief, barely breathing through the endless condolences. Adam had been my partner for 11 years, the man who gave me a love story people dream about. And then, only days after I buried him, my sister decided to destroy whatever pieces of my heart were still intact. I should have stayed home that morning. I should have locked the door curled up on the bed where Adam once slept and allowed myself to disappear into silence. But my parents insisted. Family comes first, they said, echoing the words Adam used to repeat whenever I hesitated to attend another family obligation. That is why I found myself driving to Cassandra's small rental house, a gift wrapped on the passenger seat, even though my hands were trembling on the steering wheel. It was Lucas's first birthday, my nephew, a little boy I had tried to love, despite my private envy. The yard was filled with blue balloons, guests whispering nervously when I walked through the kitchen. I thought they were awkward around me because of my grief. I had no idea they were waiting for Cassandra's performance. When she finally appeared, her hair styled, her dress new, her confidence unlike anything I had seen in her before the crowd fell silent. She tapped a spoon against her plastic cup. The words that left her mouth froze me in place. "Lucas is not Tyler's son," she announced, her eyes cutting into mine. "He is Adam's. We had an affair 2 years ago. Lucas is Adam's child." A murmur swept the yard. My parents stiffened. Strangers gasped. My chest collapsed under a weight so crushing that for a moment I thought I might faint right there on the grass. But she was not finished. From her purse, Cassandra pulled out a folded piece of paper. Adam knew the truth. Before he died, he changed his will. "This house worth $800,000 belongs half to me on behalf of Lucas." She lifted the paper high like it was divine scripture, her voice steady, rehearsed cruel. Everyone's eyes turned to me, waiting for me to break, to scream, to collapse. But I did none of those things. Instead, I felt something dark and strange rise inside me. My lips twitched. I pressed them together, fighting the inappropriate urge to laugh. Because in the moment, standing in my sister's backyard, I knew something Cassandra did not. Adam could never have been Lucas's father. I looked around the yard, at my parents' pale faces, at the strangers' curiosity, at the pity already flooding their eyes. Cassandra believed she had staged the perfect humiliation. What she did not realize was that she had walked into a trap of her own making. And I was no longer the grieving widow she thought she could destroy. This was only the beginning. Before I share the rest, if you have ever felt the sting of betrayal inside your own family, you will understand why I must tell this story. And if you want to walk with me through every twist and revelation, make sure you stay until the end. You will not believe what happened next. When I think back to how it all began, my mind always returns to that night at the charity auction. My name is still Louise in this story, but in that moment, I was simply a 22-year-old volunteer, arranging silent auction items on a table, completely unaware that fate was about to change my life forever. The event was packed with donors sipping wine and trading polite laughter. My focus had been on a watercolor painting of the Boston skyline at sunset. The colors bled into one another, bright oranges dissolving into deep purples that melted into the harbor. I could not take my eyes off it. I knew I could never afford it, but staring at it brought me a strange calm. When the bidding began, I watched quietly from the corner as the price climbed. One man kept raising his card until the room fell silent. He won the painting with ease, but instead of celebrating, he walked directly toward me. He held the framed watercolor in both hands. "I noticed you looking at this all night," he said, his blue eyes soft but piercing. "I think it belongs with you." That was Adam, thoughtful, observant, generous to a fault. The kind of man who remembered not just names, but details: what drink you ordered, what story you told weeks earlier, the exact sound of your laugh. That small moment, his simple gift, set the tone for the next 11 years of my life. The very next night we had dinner together. It was effortless. I felt like I had known him my whole life. Adam was a corporate attorney, brilliant yet humble. He asked genuine questions, not to fill silence, but to really know me. I remember thinking, this is someone I could build a life with. 8 months later, he proved me right. On a crisp evening by the harbor, he knelt down with the Boston skyline behind him, the same view that had drawn us together in that watercolor, and asked me to marry him. I said yes without hesitation, my heart already certain long before that night. We bought a Victorian home in Beacon Hill soon after. $800,000 for a house that needed work felt terrifying, but Adam had just made partner at his firm, and I was slowly building a reputation as an interior designer. The house had good bones, high ceilings, a small garden in the back. I imagined children playing there one day. Of course, life had other plans. For years we tried. We charted, we hoped, we endured procedures and tests. 4 rounds of IVF drained not just our savings, but our spirits. I will never forget the final failed attempt. The drive home was silent, my tears sliding down the window. Adam reached across the console, his hand warm on mine. No words, just the truth we both already knew: that dream had ended. That night, sitting on our porch swing, Adam whispered, "We can still have a beautiful life, you and me. That is enough." And he meant it. That was Adam never measuring our worth by what we lacked, but by what we built together. We rebuilt slowly, we traveled. We poured our energy into our work. Room by room, we transformed that Beacon Hill house into the home I had always envisioned. Adam encouraged me to launch my own design firm, even when it meant financial risk. He was my biggest champion. Looking back, it feels cruel that a man like that is gone. Cruel that Cassandra tried to rewrite his story with lies. But remembering this beginning reminds me of the truth. Adam was loyal. He was devoted. He was the man who handed me a painting because he saw something in my eyes. He was not the man Cassandra described at Lucas's party. And this is why I must tell the story completely. Because if you only heard Cassandra's version, you might believe her. If you only saw that forged, well, you might think Adam had betrayed me. But I knew him better than anyone, and soon the evidence would prove it. Before I move on, let me ask you this. Have you ever witnessed a moment where kindness changed your entire life? Share it with me below. And if stories like this resonate with you, do not forget to subscribe so you can walk with me through the rest of this journey. The truth about marriage is that love alone is never enough. I learned that in the hardest way. Adam and I had the kind of connection people envied, but even that bond could not give us the one thing we longed for most: a child. At first we were hopeful. Each month brought a new wave of anticipation, and each disappointment left us clinging tighter to one another. I charted cycles, read every article, visited specialists. Adam, always steady, reassured me with quiet patience. "Whatever happens, we will face it together," he would whisper at night when I cried into his chest. Then came the doctors, the tests, the endless appointments in sterile rooms. 4 rounds of IVF. 4 times sitting in waiting rooms filled with nervous couples. 4 times signing paperwork that felt both hopeful and cruel. Each round drained more than our savings, it drained our hearts. The last attempt ended with silence. I remember that drive home as if it were carved into stone. No words between us, only Adam's hand gripping mine, both of us knowing the truth: this was the end of that road. No miracle awaited us. That night we sat on the porch swing of our Beacon Hill home. The garden we had once envisioned, filled with children's laughter, was quiet shadows stretching across the lawn. Adam finally spoke. "We can still have a beautiful life, you and me. That is enough." His voice was steady, but I knew he had mourned too. I wanted to believe him, and slowly we found a way. We poured ourselves into work. I launched my design firm, and Adam supported me every step of the way. We traveled to Paris, to the Rockies, to small towns along the coast, where no one knew us as the couple without children. We rebuilt our dreams. But even as I tried to embrace our new life, there were cracks. Every baby shower invitation cut like glass. Every holiday sitting at the children's table with nieces and nephews running around reminded me of what we had lost. And in those moments, Cassandra hovered at the edges. She was younger, beautiful, impulsive. While I worked late nights drafting floor plans, she was out at bars chasing new jobs and new boyfriends. My parents always worried over her, bailing her out of one crisis after another. I told myself it was harmless. She was family, and family mattered. But deep down, I felt a tension I could not name. The irony, of course, is that when Cassandra announced her pregnancy, it felt like the final twist of the knife. At Thanksgiving dinner, she stood with theatrical tears and declared that she was expecting. She had never wanted children. She used to mock me for wanting them, telling me I was giving in to society's expectations. And yet there she was, hand on her stomach, receiving applause for the miracle I had begged the universe for. I swallowed the bitterness and smiled. I told myself I would be the best aunt I could. I knitted Lucas a blanket, visited Cassandra in the hospital, held him in my arms with genuine love. And in a way, he did heal something in me. I thought I could pour my love into him, that being an aunt could soothe the wound of never being a mother. But Adam was different. He kept his distance. At the time, I believed it was because of his own pain, that holding another woman's baby was too sharp a reminder of our loss. Now I know there was more. I know that Adam saw danger where I saw innocence. I did not realize it then, but Cassandra had already begun weaving the threads of the lie that would unravel my life after Adam's death. And let me ask you, what would you have done in my place? Would you have kept opening your heart, or would you have shut the door on family to protect yourself? Share your thoughts in the comments. I want to know how you see it. If you want to understand how my sister Cassandra ended up standing in her backyard, fabricating an affair with my husband, you need to know who she has always been. Family history is never simple, but in ours, the roles were drawn early. I was the reliable one, the achiever. Cassandra was the wild child. From childhood, it seemed she lived in my shadow. When I brought home good grades, she brushed off her poor performance with a laugh, knowing my parents would excuse it. When I earned a scholarship, she mocked the hours I spent studying, but sulked when relatives praised me. Her beauty became her shield. With glossy hair and a smile that could melt resistance, she knew how to draw attention, how to make people overlook the mess she left behind. Our parents worried endlessly about her. That worry translated into rescues loans repaid on her behalf, excuses made for her failures, sympathetic sighs when she lost yet another job. For every achievement of mine, Cassandra seemed to demand equal recognition without equal effort. When I met Adam, the pattern only deepened. He was everything I had dreamed of, thoughtful, accomplished, secure. Suddenly, Cassandra was curious about law students. She inserted herself into conversations about legal careers she knew nothing about. She asked me endless questions about Adam, his favorite music, his hobbies, his friends. At the time, I thought she was simply trying to connect. Now I know better. When Adam and I bought our Beacon Hill house, Cassandra found reasons to complain about her apartment. She dropped hints about how unfair it was that I had vaulted ceilings and a garden while she barely had space for her clothes. My parents nodded sympathetically. "She is younger," they said. "She will get there." But Cassandra did not want to get there. She wanted to be there already without doing the work. 2 years before Adam died, Cassandra started dating Tyler, a bartender, with tattoos winding down his arms and a motorcycle parked outside whatever bar he worked at that month. My parents disapproved instantly, which only made her cling to him harder. Their relationship was volatile, dramatic fights, followed by public reconciliations. Yet Cassandra glowed when she brought him around, as though his rugged image gave her borrowed importance. When she announced her pregnancy at Thanksgiving, I thought my chest would collapse. After years of trying after every failed IVF, it was she who had mocked the very idea of motherhood, who stood there clutching her stomach with tears running down her cheeks. The irony was almost too much to bear. Still, I swallowed my jealousy. I promised myself I would not let bitterness turn me into someone I hated. I told Cassandra I was happy for her. I knitted a blanket. I visited her in the hospital. I held Lucas and whispered promises to be there for him. And for a while, I believed those promises would carry us forward. But Cassandra's competitive streak never faded. She began hinting that Lucas was special in ways other babies were not, that perhaps fate had favored her after all. She reminded me that she had something I never could. A child like it was a trump card she could play whenever she wanted. Adam saw it too. He encouraged me to keep some distance, but I resisted. "She is my only sister," I told him. "Family matters." He sighed, but never pressed. That was Adam always prioritizing my heart, even when it meant letting me hold on to relationships that chipped away at me. Looking back, I realized Cassandra's envy had been fermenting for years. She wanted what I had. When she could not achieve it, she schemed to take it. In her eyes, Adam was not just my husband. He was another trophy I had claimed, another sign of success she believed should have been hers. That is why at Lucas's birthday party she was able to stand there with so much confidence. She had been rehearsing her performance for years, cultivating resentment until it bloomed into something poisonous. And when Adam died, leaving me vulnerable, she saw her chance. I did not know it at the time, but the seeds of betrayal had been planted long before Lucas was born. They were watered by jealousy, protected by parental indulgence, and finally unleashed in the cruelest way imaginable. Cassandra had always wanted to one-up me. What I did not expect was how far she would go. Lucas's arrival should have been a moment of joy for everyone. Instead, for me, it was a bittersweet wound wrapped in soft blankets and tiny cries. When Cassandra gave birth, I forced myself to stand in that hospital room with flowers in one hand and a handmade blanket in the other. I had knitted it for months, every stitch a silent prayer for the child I thought would heal our family. Lucas was perfect, 8 pounds and 4 ounces of life. His little fingers curled around mine, and for a moment the ache inside me quieted. I whispered to him that I would be his safe place, his aunt who would never let him down. In that instant, my jealousy fell away, replaced by a fierce determination to love him as if he were my own. Cassandra, however, was overwhelmed. She called me late at night in tears about colic, about exhaustion, about how motherhood was more than she had bargained for. I answered every call. I drove over to her apartment at dawn to rock Lucas so she could sleep. Sometimes he spent the night at our house so Cassandra could rest. My life, once filled with the hum of design projects and travel plans, became centered around the baby I never had. Adam's response was different. He was polite when Cassandra visited, kind in the way he always was, but he kept a certain distance from Lucas. At the time, I thought it was because of our infertility struggles that holding a baby not his own was too much to bear. I never pushed him. I told myself, everyone grieves differently. Still, I couldn't ignore the tension. I would come home after babysitting Lucas exhausted, but secretly fulfilled only to find Adam quiet, staring at the garden, lost in thought. I assumed he was simply processing our loss in his own way. What I did not realize then was that his distance had a reason, one that would only become clear after his death. The months passed quickly. Lucas grew, and so did my role in his life. Family members joked that I was his second mother. Cassandra did not argue. She let me step in whenever she needed. It felt natural, like destiny had handed me a way to channel the love I had stored up all those years. And then came the irony that still stings when Adam died. It was Lucas's first birthday that pulled me out of the house, away from my grief, and into Cassandra's trap. My mother insisted Adam would want you to go. Family comes first. So I went, gift-wrapped eyes swollen from sleepless nights, heart cracked open and bleeding. I walked into that party ready to plaster on a smile to celebrate the child I had loved as my own nephew. I did not know Cassandra had already rehearsed her script, already prepared her cruel performance. She knew the depth of my love for Lucas, and she wielded it like a weapon. I look back now and realize something chilling. Cassandra's announcement wasn't only about money, it was about control. By claiming Lucas as Adam's child, she was not just attacking me financially, she was stealing the one bond that had brought me peace during my infertility. She was trying to rip away even the role of aunt, to erase me from Lucas's life and rewrite me as the other woman, the fool who had been betrayed. That betrayal cut deeper than any knife. Yet standing in her backyard, I did not crumble. I smiled, because I knew something she didn't. And that knowledge became my shield, the reason I could stand tall, while the rest of the guests gawked at me with pity. If you have ever loved someone else's child as if they were your own, you know how powerful that bond can be. Tell me, have you ever stepped into a role you never expected, like being the second parent, the protector? Share your story, and while you're here, remember to subscribe so you don't miss what happens when betrayal collides with truth. The day Adam died began like any other ordinary Tuesday. I woke up early, brewed coffee, and prepared for a client meeting. Adam came into the kitchen rubbing his temples. "Just a headache," he said when I asked. His smile tried to reassure me, but something about the pallor of his skin made me uneasy. "Stay home," I urged. "Cancel the meeting." He shook his head. "It's important. Just a migraine. I'll call you after." That call never came. Instead, my phone rang hours later with a voice I did not recognize. A nurse from the hospital. Her words were clinical, detached, but they shattered my world. "Your husband collapsed. You need to come immediately." By the time I arrived, it was too late. Adam was gone. A brain aneurysm, sudden and irreversible. 36 years old, and just like that, the man who had been my world was reduced to medical terminology and condolences. The days that followed blurred together. Funeral arrangements, sympathy cards, endless casseroles left at my door. I walked through it all like a ghost. People spoke to me, touched my arm, offered prayers, but none of it reached me. Nights were the worst. I lay in our bed staring at the empty space beside me, my body still reaching instinctively for his warmth. Through it all, Cassandra was strangely absent. She sent brief texts, "Lucas has a fever," or "couldn't find a sitter." Excuses that kept her away from the very rituals where family was supposed to stand together. When she did appear at the funeral, she slipped in, late stayed for less than an hour, then disappeared before the reception. She kept to herself, avoiding my eyes as if grief were contagious, and she did not want to catch it. At the time, I told myself not to think about her absence. I was drowning in my own sorrow, but later her distance would take on a new meaning. 1 week after the burial, my mother called daily, pressing me to attend Lucas's first birthday party. "Family comes first," she repeated. "Adam always said so. He would want you there." I resisted. The thought of smiling for photographs of clapping while a baby smashed cake felt impossible when my heart was cracked wide open. But guilt pressed heavier than grief, and eventually I relented. That morning, I dressed mechanically concealer, failing to hide the purple shadows beneath my eyes. I placed a wrapped toy on the passenger seat and drove across town. Every mile felt heavier, my chest tightening, my throat aching. When I pulled up, the house was small, in a neighborhood worn around the edges. Cars lined the street, balloons sagged from the porch. I sat in my car for several minutes, taking deep breaths, trying to summon the mask I would need. Inside, the rooms were decorated with blue streamers. A banner stretched across the wall, "Happy First Birthday, Lucas." Strangers filled the kitchen, their whispers fading the moment I entered. Their eyes followed me like I was some exotic creature, a widow walking among the living. In the backyard, my parents sat at a picnic table, looking uncomfortable. Relief spread across my father's face when he saw me. "We weren't sure you'd come," he admitted, hugging me. My mother avoided my gaze. "Cassandra will be out soon with Lucas." I forced a smile, set the gift on the table, and endured the awkward small talk. Everyone's condolences felt rehearsed. Their pity pressed down on me until I wanted to scream, but I stayed. For Adam, for family. Then Cassandra appeared. Her hair freshly highlighted, a new dress clinging to her frame, Lucas perched on her hip in a tiny bow tie. She looked radiant, energized, almost giddy. For someone claiming her life was so difficult, she seemed to revel in the attention. She placed Lucas in his high chair, tapped her spoon against a cup, and called for silence. I thought she was about to thank the guests, maybe say something kind about Adam. Instead, she dropped a bomb that would ignite the wildfire of betrayal. At that moment, I had no idea just how calculated her absence from my grief had been. I had no idea that while I mourned, she was planning her next move. And as her words cut through the air, I realized the worst was not Adam's death. The worst was yet to come. The backyard was filled with chatter balloons bobbing in the breeze, and the scent of grilled food lingering in the air. For a moment, I almost convinced myself I could survive the afternoon. I smiled at distant relatives, accepted paper cups of lemonade, and tried to ignore the fact that my husband had been buried less than 2 weeks earlier. Then Cassandra tapped her spoon against a plastic cup. The sound was sharp, deliberate. Conversations stopped. Even the children playing near the fence quieted, their balloons dangling in silence. Cassandra stood tall in her new dress, her hair catching the sunlight. Lucas perched nearby in his high chair. "Thank you all for coming to celebrate Lucas's special day," she began, her voice projecting with unusual confidence. "This past year has been full of surprises and challenges." My stomach tightened. The way she paused, the way her eyes searched for mine across the crowd, it felt rehearsed. My mother looked down at her shoes, refusing to meet my gaze. Something was wrong. "I have been keeping a secret," Cassandra continued, her hand resting dramatically on Lucas's head. "One, I can no longer hide. Lucas is not Tyler's son. He is Adam's." Gasps rippled through the crowd. The plastic cup nearly slipped from my hand. My father stiffened beside me, his jaw set. All I could hear was the rush of blood in my ears, drowning out the murmurs, the whispers, the disbelief spreading like fire. But Cassandra did not stop there. She spoke of an affair 2 years ago, painting Adam as a man who had betrayed his vows, who had betrayed me. It was a mistake, she said with feigned sorrow, but these things happen. Every eye in the yard turned to me. Pity, curiosity, discomfort. My parents looked stricken, my father half standing as if to intervene. I wanted to scream, to tear the words from the air, but instead something unexpected rose within me. A smile. Not one of joy, but of disbelief so sharp it nearly made me laugh out loud. Because I knew something Cassandra did not. Adam had undergone a vasectomy 2 years before Lucas was conceived. Her story was biologically impossible. Still, Cassandra continued her performance. From her purse, she pulled a folded paper. Adam knew the truth about Lucas. Before he died, he updated his will. He wanted his son provided for. This will states that half of the house he owned with Bridget belongs to Lucas. She held the paper high, as though presenting undeniable proof. The crowd leaned in, eyes flickering between the supposed will and my face. I pressed my lips together, swallowing the laugh that bubbled inside me. I stepped forward, my voice steady. "May I see that?" Her confidence faltered just slightly. She hesitated, then handed me the page. I scanned it quickly. The legal phrasing was sloppy, the formatting wrong, the signature a poor imitation. Adam's real documents had a precision this forgery lacked. The connecting stroke between the A and D in his name was all wrong, the final flourish too exaggerated. I folded it neatly and handed it back. "Thank you for sharing," I said calmly. "I think I'll be leaving now." Confusion flickered across her face. "That's it? You're not going to argue?" "Not today," I answered, gathering my purse. "This is Lucas's day. We can discuss this later." The guests watched in stunned silence as I walked past them, their whispers chasing me to my car. Once inside, I let go. The laugh I had been holding back burst out, shaking my whole body until tears streamed down my face. Not joy, not madness, but the raw absurdity of Cassandra's audacity. Because she had no idea. She thought she had destroyed me with her lies, humiliated me in front of family and friends. But Adam, thoughtful as always, had prepared for this long before. He had left behind the truth. And I was about to use it. If you were standing in that backyard hearing your sister accuse your late husband of betrayal, how would you react? Would you scream, "Stay silent," or smile the way I did? Tell me in the comments. I want to hear your thoughts. I remember gripping the steering wheel in my car after leaving that party, laughter spilling from me in waves that bordered on hysteria. My body shook, my chest ached, but I could not stop. To anyone else, it might have looked like madness, a widow unraveling. But the truth was far stranger. I laughed because Cassandra's entire performance was built on sand. She stood there so confidently, declaring that Lucas was Adam's son, waving a forged will in front of family and strangers. She believed she had broken me. She believed she had finally taken what she thought I had stolen from her all my life. But she did not know Adam like I did. And she did not know what we had been through 3 years earlier. It started one evening at our house. We had invited Cassandra for dinner to celebrate her latest job, a marketing position she swore was finally the right fit. Adam made his famous lasagna, poured good wine, and for a while everything was easy. Then I stepped away to take a client call. It lasted longer than I expected. When I returned, the air was heavy. Cassandra sat too close to Adam, her hand brushing his arm, laughter dripping with something more than sisterly affection. Later that night, Adam confessed. "I don't want secrets between us," he said, sitting on the edge of our bed. Cassandra had made a pass at him, suggesting he deserved someone who could truly appreciate him. He shut her down, but the words lingered. I was hurt, yes, but not surprised. Cassandra always pushed boundaries. We decided to let it go. Except it did not stop. Over the next months, she sent text messages, towing the line between playful and suggestive. She found excuses to touch Adam whenever I was out of sight. Once she even showed up at his office uninvited. Each time Adam told me immediately. Each time he reinforced the truth, he was loyal to me always. Then came the medical diagnosis. Adam had been experiencing pain for weeks before he finally saw a urologist. The answer was a varicocele, a tangle of veins that required surgery. The procedure went smoothly, but the doctor made a recommendation. Given the severity, he suggested a vasectomy to prevent recurrence. It was a brutal decision, especially after our years of infertility treatments, but Adam chose his health. We agreed it was the right path. 2 years before Lucas was conceived, Adam had the procedure, a vasectomy, and follow-up tests confirmed it was completely successful, which meant, without question, it was biologically impossible for him to father a child afterward. We told no one, not our parents, not Cassandra, not even close friends. After years of invasive questions about when we would finally have children, we decided to keep that final chapter private. Only Adam, his doctors, and I knew the truth. But Adam had been worried. "Cassandra isn't done," he warned one night as we sat in the garden, the faint hum of the city around us. He winced, adjusting an ice pack discreetly. "One day she'll try something more drastic." I laughed it off then. I thought he was being paranoid. But Adam, always cautious, took steps anyway. He met with his attorney, documented everything: Cassandra's advances, the surgery, the medical records. He updated his will properly, leaving everything to me. He placed copies of it all in a safety deposit box, a disaster kit, he called it. That was Adam, thoughtful, protective, preparing for storms he hoped would never come. So, when Cassandra paraded that forged will at Lucas's birthday party, when she spoke those rehearsed lines about an affair that never happened, I did not crumble. I smiled. Because I already held the truth. Because Adam had made sure I would not face her schemes unarmed. And as I sat in my car, laughter turning to tears, I realized something profound. Cassandra thought she was powerful because she could manipulate the room, because she could twist the sympathy of strangers. But real power was in preparation. Real power was in truth, and soon I would use that truth to dismantle her lies. The morning after the birthday party, I drove straight to the bank. My body was heavy with exhaustion, but beneath that fatigue pulsed something sharper: purpose. Cassandra thought she had cornered me with her lies. What she didn't realize was that Adam and I had already built a fortress around the truth. The manager greeted me with somber eyes. He had known Adam and me for years, often waving when we stopped in on Saturdays. Now he escorted me to the vault in silence, offering condolences that landed like echoes. He unlocked the small metal box and placed it in front of me. I carried it into a private viewing room, closed the door, and sat with my hands trembling over the cool steel. Inside was Adam's disaster kit, as he had half joked when we created it. But this was no joke. The first document I pulled out was his legitimate will, notarized and properly executed, leaving everything to me. No ambiguity, no loopholes, no mention of Cassandra or Lucas. The sight of his handwriting, precise and deliberate, steadied me. Next came the medical records. The surgical notes confirmed the varicocele repair, and the vasectomy performed 2 years before Lucas was conceived. Follow-up test results, stamped with dates and signatures, left no room for doubt. Adam was not and could never be Lucas's father. Beneath the records lay his journal. Adam's neat script filled page after page with entries documenting every encounter with Cassandra, the inappropriate comments, the late-night text messages, the time she appeared uninvited at his office. He included dates, times, and exact quotes. It was evidence not only of her advances, but of his loyalty to me, his insistence on honesty. There were printed copies of her messages, too, flirtations that blurred the line between sisterly affection and something much darker. Some made my skin crawl to read, but at the same time they confirmed everything Adam had told me. He hadn't been paranoid. He had been protecting us. At the bottom of the box lay a sealed envelope. My name was written on the front in Adam's familiar hand. I hesitated, tears already blurring my vision. Then I opened it. "My dearest Louise," it began. "If you are reading this, something has happened, and you have needed to access these documents. I hope it is many years from now, when we are old and gray, laughing at Cassandra's antics as if they were ancient history. But if not, if she has tried to hurt you in my absence, please know I tried to prepare for every possibility. Use these documents to protect yourself. You deserve to be safe even from family. I love you beyond words, beyond time." The letter blurred as tears slid down my cheeks. Even in death, Adam was still holding me, still shielding me from the storm Cassandra had unleashed. I packed the essentials copies of the will, the medical records, selected journal entries. Then I returned the rest to the box and locked it away. As I stepped out of the bank into the bright morning, a strange sense of strength filled me. Cassandra's lies suddenly felt small compared to the weight of Adam's foresight. This wasn't just about proving her wrong. This was about protecting Adam's memory, about making sure his name was not dragged through the mud of her desperation. I called James Wilson, Adam's attorney and longtime mentor, and scheduled a meeting. As I drove to his brownstone office later that afternoon, I carried Adam's words with me. His love was not gone. It was alive in every line of his handwriting, every document he had prepared, every safeguard he had left behind. I realized then that the battle had only just begun. Cassandra thought she was clever, but I had something she never would. The truth locked and documented, undeniable, and ready to be revealed. And as I prepared to walk into James's office, I couldn't help but wonder how far would Cassandra go once she realized her plan was crumbling. Because if you think a forged will and a false claim were the end of her schemes, you are wrong. What came next would expose not only her lies, but the darkness she had been hiding all along. Stay with me. You will want to hear how deep this betrayal really went. James Wilson's office was quiet, the kind of space where secrets could be spoken without fear of echo. The brownstone walls were lined with shelves of legal texts, the scent of leather and old paper filling the air. James greeted me with a hug, his silver hair catching the light. He had been Adam's mentor years ago and remained a trusted friend. His eyes softened with sympathy. Adam was one of the good ones, he said gently. I nodded, clutching the folder against my chest, as if it were a lifeline. I explained everything Cassandra's announcement, the forged will she waved like a victory flag, the gasps of our family frozen in disbelief. James studied the document she had presented, his lips pressed into a thin line. This is amateurish, he said at last. The phrasing is sloppy, the signature would never survive scrutiny. But the fact that she tried it all that troubles me more than the forgery itself. I laid Adam's real will, the notarized copy, on the desk. I added the medical records, the journal entries, the evidence Adam had so carefully compiled. James read through them with a lawyer's patience. Adam was thorough, he said quietly. These records alone prove Cassandra's claim impossible. The vasectomy was performed 2 years before Lucas's conception. Biologically, there is no way Adam is the father. I wanted to feel relief, but anger burned hotter. Cassandra hadn't just attacked me. She had attacked Adam's reputation, twisting his memory into something sordid. I clenched my fists. What do I do now? James leaned back, eyes narrowing. We need context. People rarely attempt something like this without serious motivation. I suggest we hire a private investigator. If Cassandra is desperate enough to commit fraud, she may be hiding more than you realize. That's how I met Frank Delaney, a stocky man with the no-nonsense air of a retired detective. He arrived within the hour, his Boston accent sharp as he shook my hand. Tell me everything, he said, notebook ready. I described Cassandra's volatile relationship with Tyler, her sudden pregnancy, the years of competition. Frank scribbled notes, pausing only to ask precise questions. What's her employment history? Any recent financial trouble? How steady is her living situation? It struck me then how little I truly knew about Cassandra's life. We had drifted apart after Lucas was born. I had been so focused on helping with the baby that I had not asked about her own stability. I'll dig, Frank promised. Give me a few days. 3 days later, I sat in James's office again, heart-pounding, as Frank laid out his findings. His words peeled back the thin veneer of Cassandra's life. She was drowning. Over $75,000 in debt. Credit cards maxed out. Personal loans unpaid. Medical bills piling up from Lucas's surgery for a heart defect. Her credit score in ruins, her landlord filing eviction papers after 4 months of missed rent. She had until the end of the month before she and Lucas would be homeless. And Tyler. He had abandoned her not long after Lucas was born. He moved to Seattle with a new girlfriend, sending occasional child support checks that barely reached $200 a month, and even those arrived late or not at all. Worse, Frank found records of Tyler's history: domestic violence, charges unpaid child support for another child in New Hampshire. Not the man anyone would want near a vulnerable boy. Frank slid a stack of printed text messages across the table. I recognized Cassandra's friend Jenna's name instantly. The messages were chilling. Cassandra bragged about her plan. Adam's death is terrible, but maybe it's finally my chance to get what I deserve. The house is worth at least $800,000 now. If I play this right, I'll have a nest egg for Lucas and me. The will is almost ready. Dave is good with Photoshop. Bridget has always been the golden child. Time to get my share. I felt sick. This wasn't desperation speaking in the heat of the moment. This was premeditated, cold, calculated. She had crafted a scheme to rob me of my home while desecrating Adam's memory. Frank closed his notebook. This wasn't just opportunism. This was fraud. And with Tyler out of the picture, she thought you were vulnerable. She believed no one would question her story. Silence filled the room. James finally spoke. You have choices. You could file charges, fraud, forgery, conspiracy. It could put her in prison. Or his voice softened. We confront her privately. Force her to retract, to confess without destroying what remains of the family. The words family caught in my throat. What did family mean when betrayal cut this deep? If you discovered your own sibling had plotted against you like this, would you take them to court or handle it behind closed doors? Tell me in the comments because I need to know what you would do. The decision weighed on me for days, but in the end, I knew what I had to do. If I dragged Cassandra into court immediately, it would ignite a scandal that might scar Lucas forever. And though I was furious, though every nerve in me screamed for justice, I could not punish an innocent child for his mother's lies. I would confront her myself with evidence, with truth, with the strength Adam had left me. I called Cassandra early one morning. My voice was calm, steady. We need to talk about the will. Come to my house tomorrow, 2 o'clock, just you, no Lucas. There was a pause on the line before she answered. I knew you'd come around, she said smugly. I'll be there. The next day, I spent the morning preparing. On James's advice, I placed a recorder on the coffee table. In Massachusetts, both parties must consent to recording, so I rehearsed how I would ask her clearly. I arranged the documents in a neat folder: medical records, the legitimate will, Adam's journal entries, Frank's investigative report. My hands shook slightly as I set 2 glasses of water beside the recorder. At precisely 2 o'clock, the doorbell rang. I inhaled slowly, then opened the door. Cassandra stood there in a polished outfit, makeup carefully done, her expression brimming with confidence. She walked in, as if she owned the place, her eyes flicking across the living room that Adam and I had built together. For a moment, I felt the urge to throw her out, but I forced myself to remain composed. Please sit, I said, motioning toward the chair across from mine. I gestured to the recorder. I'd like to record our conversation, just so we both have a record of what is said. Her brows rose, but she smirked. Fine, whatever makes you comfortable. I pressed the button stating the date, time, and confirming her consent. The small red light blinked between us like a silent witness. Before we discuss the will, I began evenly. I want to hear your side. Tell me what exactly you are claiming happened between you and Adam. Cassandra launched into her story without hesitation, her words flowing with practiced ease. She claimed she and Adam had reconnected during a rough patch in my marriage. She described secret meetings at a downtown hotel, whispered confessions of his unhappiness, passionate encounters that supposedly resulted in Lucas's conception. Her eyes even shimmered with fake emotion as she spoke. I listened silently, but inside my fury grew. She was desecrating Adam's memory, painting him as a man who betrayed me when I knew beyond any shadow of doubt that he never did. When she finished, I leaned forward, my voice calm but sharp. Which hotel did you meet at? The Mandarin Oriental, she replied quickly. What room number? She faltered. It was on a high floor. I don't remember the exact number. What days of the week did you meet? Tuesdays, Thursdays? Her story wavered. Sometimes it varied. I pressed further, asking about Adam's habits. The smallest details only someone close to him would know. What side of the bed did he prefer? Did he shower before or after intimacy? What did he usually order from room service? Each question sliced into her confidence, and her answers grew vague, contradictory. Finally, she snapped. Why does any of this matter? The point is, Lucas is Adam's son, and the will proves it. I sat back, my heart steady. The moment had come. Actually, I said, reaching for the folder, both of those claims are lies. I laid the medical records on the table. Cassandra's eyes darted to them, her face paling. These documents show that Adam had a vasectomy 2 years before Lucas was conceived. It was successful, confirmed by tests. It was physically impossible for him to father a child. She picked up the pages with trembling hands. These could be faked, she muttered weakly. They are not, I said firmly. His doctor is prepared to testify. Next, I placed the legitimate will in front of her. This is Adam's real will, notarized and filed. It leaves everything to me. There is no mention of Lucas. Your document is a forgery. Creating one is a felony punishable by prison. Her smirk vanished. For the first time, Cassandra looked truly afraid. And I wasn't finished. From the folder, I pulled Adam's journal entries documenting her advances. I slid across the printouts of her text messages with Jenna bragging about her plan. I placed Frank's report detailing her debt, the eviction notice, Tyler's abandonment. Finally, I met her eyes. We know everything. The question now is what happens next. The silence that followed was thick, her bravado crumbling as tears filled her eyes. For the first time in years, Cassandra had no comeback, no smirk, no weapon. And I knew then the balance of power had shifted. The silence between us was sharp enough to cut glass. Cassandra clutched the papers with shaking hands, her lips pressed into a thin line. Her bravado had evaporated, replaced by the weight of undeniable truth. I leaned forward, my tone calm but unyielding. The will you waived at Lucas's birthday, a forgery. The medical records, proof. Adam could not have fathered your child. And these messages, your own words, plotting how to steal half my home. Her shoulders hunched as though the evidence pressed physically against her. For once, Cassandra looked small. You don't understand, she whispered. I had no choice. I'm drowning. The bills, the rent, Tyler leaving us. Stop, I cut her off. Do not twist this into desperation. This wasn't survival. This was calculated fraud. You stood in front of our family and claimed Adam was unfaithful. You tried to tarnish the only good thing I had left. Her eyes brimmed with tears spilling down her cheeks. I thought if I could just get some of the house. By rewriting history, my voice rose despite myself. By turning Adam into a liar, into a man he never was. By making me the fool who couldn't see it. She dropped her gaze, tears falling freely now. For the first time there was no smugness, no performance, just raw fear. I paused, inhaled, then placed one final piece of evidence on the table. A letter in Adam's handwriting addressed to me, explaining his preparations. I did not let her read it, but I wanted her to see his words, his foresight. Adam knew you might try something like this, I said softly. Even in death, he was still protecting me from you. Cassandra's face crumpled. She buried her head in her hands, sobbing the kind of sobs that rattled through her whole body. Do you realize what you've done? I asked, quieter now. You didn't just betray me. You betrayed Lucas. You made him a pawn in your lies. She lifted her face, mascara streaked. I was desperate, Louise. The eviction notice, the debt, I thought I'd lose everything. I thought if I could just convince everyone you'd give me what I needed. Needed or wanted, I countered. Because what you wanted wasn't help. It was envy as always. You've spent your life trying to take what you thought belonged to me. Adam, the house, respect. Her sobs grew harsher, echoing off the walls. For once, she had no retort. I reached out, clicked off the recorder. The red light dimmed. The evidence was mine now, undeniable, preserved. I leaned back and studied her. She looked like a child who had been caught stealing, trembling in fear of punishment. You know I could take this straight to the police, I said flatly. Fraud, forgery, conspiracy. You'd be facing prison. Her head snapped up, panic flashing in her eyes. No, please, you can't. What about Lucas? He needs me. If I go to jail? Lucas needs stability, I cut in. Not lies, not schemes. And if you think I won't protect him from you, if I must, you are wrong. We sat in silence, only her ragged breathing breaking the air. At last I stood. You're out of options, Cassandra. The only question left is whether you'll admit the truth publicly or force me to expose you myself. Her sobs softened into hiccups. What do you want me to do? I looked down at her, feeling a strange mixture of pity and fury. Tell the truth. Admit that Adam never touched you. Admit Lucas is not his son. Admit the will was forged, publicly. To our parents, to everyone you lied to. She nodded weakly, her body slumping in defeat. But inside me the fury still burned. She had almost stolen everything, my home, my husband's honor, the last shred of peace I clung to. This wasn't over yet. You think this was the end of Cassandra's lies? Think again, because what came next would push our family to its breaking point and force me to make a decision no sister ever wants to face. Stay with me. Cassandra sat there with her shoulders caved and the bravado gone, like a mask that had finally cracked. For a long while, the only sound was her uneven breathing. I folded my hands in my lap, waiting. She had run out of lies. Now she had no choice but to speak the truth. Finally, she lifted her head. Her voice trembled. I lied. Adam never touched me. There was no affair. The words spilled out in gasps like a confession she had been holding back for years. Lucas? He isn't Adam's son. He's Tyler's. The admission hit the air like a thunderclap. All the tension, all the poisonous doubt she had tried to plant in people's minds, it vanished with those words. Still, I pressed, unwilling to let her escape with half-truths. And the will? She wiped her face with the back of her hand, her mascara streaked into shadows. I made it up. My friend Dave, he works in design. He helped me fake Adam's signature. I thought if I had something official looking, you'd give in faster. The fury in me flared again. You tried to rob me while I was grieving. You stood in front of our family and spit on Adam's memory. She broke down again sobbing, but her words tumbled out between gasps. I didn't know what else to do. Louise, I'm drowning. I owe over $75,000. Credit cards, loans, hospital bills from Lucas's surgery. Tyler's gone and the landlord's about to throw us out. I thought, if I could just get half the house, it would solve everything. I know it was wrong, but I was desperate. I studied her carefully. For the first time, I saw her stripped of vanity, stripped of excuses. She was not the radiant sister who always demanded the spotlight. She was a frightened mother staring into the abyss of failure. But desperation didn't excuse what she had done. You chose to destroy Adam's reputation for money. You could have asked for help. You could have been honest. Instead, you staged a performance to humiliate me in front of everyone. Her voice hardened, turning bitter even through tears. You have everything. The house, the respect, a career. You had Adam for 11 years. What do I have? A baby with a heart condition, no partner, no money. You don't understand what it feels like to lose everything. I stood slowly, my voice sharp. I do understand. I lost my husband. The difference is I didn't use my grief to destroy others. Cassandra fell silent, her sobs quieting into shudders. For the first time, she seemed to realize there was no way out. I let the silence hang before I spoke again. Here's the reality: I could press charges. Fraud, forgery, that could mean prison, but that would also shatter Lucas's life. And despite what you've done, I love him. So here's your choice. Either I go to the police or you agree to my terms. She looked up, her eyes wide, her voice small. What terms? You will tell the truth publicly, to our parents, to everyone who heard your lies. You will admit Adam never betrayed me, that Lucas is Tyler's son, that you forged the will. Then, and only then, I will help you and Lucas. Not by giving you half the house, but by setting up a trust fund for Lucas's medical care and education. I'll help you find stable housing, but there will be conditions: therapy, financial counseling, employment, and I will remain part of Lucas's life. Break those terms, and the support ends. Her mouth opened, stunned. Why would you do that after what I've done? I steadied my voice. Not for you, for Lucas. And because Adam would have wanted me to protect his nephew even if his mother betrayed him. She pressed her hands to her face and whispered, I don't deserve this. No, I said, standing tall, you don't, but Lucas does. In that moment, I felt the balance of power settle. She was no longer the sister who overshadowed me with reckless charm. She was a woman facing consequences, and I was the one drawing the line. If you were in my position, would you have offered mercy, or would you have let the law punish her? Tell me below. And if this story has you hooked, don't forget to subscribe, because what happened when I brought this truth to our family dinner is something you won't want to miss. The following Saturday evening, my dining room became a stage for truth. I had asked my parents and Cassandra to come early for dinner. Lucas stayed with a babysitter. I insisted on that. What was about to unfold was no place for a child. My parents arrived first, my mother carrying her famous lasagna, as if comfort food could patch the cracks in our family. I don't know what this is about, she murmured, while setting the dish on the counter. But Cassandra's been calling me in tears, saying you're forcing some kind of meeting. I didn't answer. Just wait until everyone is here, I said, pouring her a glass of wine. By 7 o'clock, we were seated around the table. The recorder sat in the center, small and unassuming, but I announced it clearly. We're recording this conversation, so everything said here is on the record. My parents exchanged uneasy glances. Cassandra looked pale, her hands knotted in her lap. I spoke first. Cassandra has something she needs to share with all of us. Cassandra. She stared at her plate, her voice barely above a whisper. I lied. About everything. My father leaned forward. What do you mean? Her words tumbled out haltingly. Lucas is not Adam's son. Adam and I never had an affair. The will I showed at Lucas's birthday was a forgery. My mother gasped, her fork clattering against her plate. My father's face hardened, his voice sharp. Why would you do such a thing? Do you know what that claim did to your sister to Adam's reputation? Cassandra's hands shook as she explained. She spoke of the debt, $75,000 spread across cards and loans. She spoke of Tyler's abandonment of eviction notices of desperation. For once, there was no performance, only a woman unraveling before the family she had manipulated for so long. When she finished, silence filled the room. My mother was the first to break it, her voice trembling. "Oh, honey, why didn't you just come to us? We would have helped." Cassandra looked up, her tone sharp through her tears. "Help me with $400,000 because that's what I would have gotten if my plan worked. Half the house." My father shook his head, disbelief in his eyes. "We couldn't give you that, but we could have helped with rent. Instead, you chose to defraud your own sister." I finally spoke, my voice firm. And it wasn't just fraud, it was cruel. She used Adam's death to stage her lies, knowing I was at my weakest. What she did wasn't just wrong, it was criminal. My mother turned to me, alarm etched into her face. "You wouldn't press charges against your sister, would you?" I met her gaze steadily. I could. Fraud and forgery are felonies. But I've chosen another path for Lucas's sake. I outlined the terms: Cassandra's public confession, the trust fund I would establish for Lucas's medical needs and education, the requirement that Cassandra attend therapy, financial counseling, maintain steady employment, and allow me to remain part of Lucas's life. I made it clear if she violated those terms, the support ended, and I would not hesitate to involve the law. My father exhaled slowly. "That's more than generous." Cassandra nodded weakly. "It's more than I deserve." But my mother, ever the enabler, clung to her illusions. "Well then," she said too brightly, "it's settled. Cassandra has apologized. Bridget is helping with Lucas, and we can put this behind us." "No," I said sharply. "We cannot just put this behind us. Trust has been broken. Healing will take time if it happens at all. And there will be boundaries. No more excuses. No more bailouts. You cannot enable her behavior anymore." My father nodded, somber. My mother looked wounded, as if I had torn away the fantasy of perfect sisterhood she had clung to for years. The dinner ended quietly. My father hugged me tightly, whispering, "I'm proud of you. Adam would be too." My mother's embrace was softer, sadder, her eyes mourning the family dynamic she realized had never truly existed. Cassandra was the last to leave. At the door she hesitated. "I'm sorry," she whispered, "not just for the will and the lies, for everything. For the years of jealousy, for not being the sister you deserved." I met her eyes, my voice steady. "I hope therapy helps you understand why you've made these choices. Lucas deserves a mother who is honest and stable. I'll hold you to that." She nodded, tears streaking her cheeks, before walking out into the night. And as the door closed, I realized something undeniable. Our family would never be the same. But maybe for Lucas's sake, it could finally become something honest. 1 year after Adam's death, I stood in the garden we had nurtured together. The daffodils he planted before he passed swayed in the spring breeze, yellow petals bright against the grass. They were blooming without him, and in that simple truth, I felt both grief and hope. Life does not wait. It insists on pushing forward. So much had changed in 12 months. The trust fund I established for Lucas had already begun covering his medical care. His heart condition, while serious, was responding to treatment, and he was growing into a cheerful, curious toddler. I visited him often, taking him to the park or the children's museum, ensuring that no matter what mistakes his mother had made, he felt surrounded by love. Cassandra, to my surprise, honored her end of the agreement. Therapy forced her to confront patterns she had ignored all her life: the jealousy, the dependency, the constant need to compete. She found stable work as an office manager at a dental practice, steady hours, and real benefits. It wasn't glamorous, but it gave her a foundation she had never had before. Our relationship remained distant, but civil, cordial conversations, polite exchanges, nothing more. And that was enough. My parents struggled with the boundaries I had set. My mother resisted at first, clinging to the illusion of sisterly closeness, but even she learned that enabling Cassandra's behavior only deepened the wounds. In time, they too adjusted, learning to support her without rescuing her from every bad choice. As for me, I poured my grief into something bigger. With the help of Adam's colleagues, I launched the Adam Preston Foundation for Legal Education, a scholarship program for underprivileged students who dreamed of studying corporate law. Watching those young faces light up at the chance Adam would have wanted them to have gave me a sense of purpose. His legacy lived on, not just in memory, but in opportunities that would outlast both of us. I also joined a grief support group. 12 strangers, each carrying invisible scars, became my lifeline. We met weekly, sharing the jagged edges of loss, celebrating small victories, sitting with one another in silence when words were too heavy. In their company, I discovered that healing isn't linear. It comes in seasons like the daffodils blooming after a long winter. And then there was Michael, a professor of ethics at Boston University. We met at a fundraiser for the foundation 6 months after Adam's death. He was kind, thoughtful, the kind of man who listened more than he spoke. At first, we were just two people sharing coffee after meetings. Slowly, it became dinners, laughter, and long conversations about books, life, and the strange ways grief shapes us. I wasn't trying to replace Adam, no one could. Michael understood that. He knew love after loss was not about erasing the past, but about building a new future that could hold both memory and possibility. We moved carefully, slowly, both cautious but hopeful. Looking back, I realize Adam prepared me for this more than he ever knew. His foresight, his documentation, his unwavering honesty, they protected me when I was at my most vulnerable. His love endured even in absence, guiding me to set boundaries, to stand firm against betrayal, to embrace the possibility of healing. Family, I learned, is not just about blood. It is about respect, honesty, and boundaries. Forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting, and compassion doesn't mean being a victim. Sometimes protecting yourself is the most loving thing you can do. As I stood among the flowers, the wind tugging gently at my hair, I whispered to the garden Adam had loved. You couldn't have known what would happen after you were gone, but you prepared me. And in that way, you still protect me. The ache in my chest didn't disappear, it never will, but it lived alongside something new, peace. Not because the pain was gone, but because I had found a way to carry it without letting it destroy me. And if there is one thing I can offer you listening now, it is this. Protect yourself with boundaries and truth. The people who truly love you will honor those boundaries. The ones who don't were never safe for you to begin with. If this story resonated with you, don't stop here. I've shared other stories of betrayal, resilience, and finding strength when family fails you. Click to watch the next video. You'll want to see how another woman turned her deepest heartbreak into the start of something stronger. And remember to subscribe so you never miss the lessons hidden inside these stories. Grief never leaves us. It doesn't pack its bags one morning and vanish with the sunrise. Instead, it becomes something we learn to carry, sometimes heavy, sometimes light, but always there. For me, the weight of Adam's absence will always be real. Yet, alongside it, I now carry strength, clarity, and the knowledge that I survived something meant to break me. Betrayal often comes from the places we least expect. We grow up believing family is safety, that blood is protection. But my sister's actions showed me that love without respect is not love at all. Protecting yourself even from family is not cruelty, it is survival. And yet, even in betrayal, there can be growth. Cassandra's confession, her therapy, her slow steps toward responsibility, they don't erase the damage, but they prove that change, however small, is possible. I don't know if forgiveness will ever come fully, but I know Lucas deserves a chance at a healthier family than the one we inherited. What keeps me steady is the legacy Adam left. His careful planning, his honesty, his foresight. They remind me that love is not measured only in years lived together, but in the ways it continues beyond death. His foundation helps others chase dreams. His memory still fills this house. His daffodils bloom each spring, stubborn and bright. So if you take anything from my story, let it be this: healing is not a straight line. Boundaries are acts of love for yourself and for those you protect. And the truth, however painful, will always be stronger than lies. Carry your grief, carry your hope, and believe as I do that even in the darkest winters the daffodils will bloom again.